Hey, folks, welcome to Build at Home. I'm Ricky Camilleri. I'm joined right now by the great Jim Gaffigan, who in a moment is going to be telling me about Dinner with Gaffigan and Jim Eats the World, two of his new YouTube shows, which I have watched. And I have to tell you, Jim, I absolutely love. I adore and admire your family.
Oh,
But before we get to that, I just want to say kids in need have missed more than 202 million meals due to school closures. We at Verizon are helping schools and community groups find new ways to feed these kids, but we need everybody's support. If you could go to nokidhungry.org and see how you can help, that would be great.
yeah. Can I also point out that there
Sure.
is 5 shelters in New York City, and one of the shelters is Ascension House Tree on the Upper West Side. And last night my wife and I got a frantic email from the woman that organizes it. The info's on my Instagram, but they are expecting, because there are so many pantries closed, that the food
Mm.
insecure people are going to be going there on Saturday. And this woman who sent this email was concerned that they wouldn't have enough canned foods and stuff like that. So if I know that there's of course I should know this by now, but like there's some New York City community pantry that I was reaching out to over Twitter and everything. Anyway, I'm just kind of building off of, there's so many people
Yeah.
in need right now that it's very easy for us to just get caught up in, like, I want to do stand up, when there's people that are like, I've got to make sure, I'm sitting here with 5 kids. I thought I ate a lot. All they do is eat.
What was the name of that shelter again? I'm sorry, there was a little bit of a lag when you said
It was
specifically when you said the name.
Ascension House. It's on
Right.
100. Here, let me pull this up. It's on my Instagram here, but it's on 107th Street, and it is the Church of Ascension Pantry,
Cool.
221 West 107th Street. So what I was, and some of it was my wife's idea. If you panic bought and you live on the Upper West Side and you're close to there, they're expecting a big rush of food insecure
Mm.
fellow citizens to show up Saturday morning. So if you have canned goods, if you have boxed milk, stuff like that, I know that people are not supposed to go out, but like maybe you have someone doing errands, or I'm hoping that we can set up, and maybe this is what you guys were talking about. Hopefully, we can set up something where we can help people out, because there's a woman online who reached out to me who's having all New Yorkers, I don't know if you saw this, send their Metro cards so that the uh, healthcare workers can use their Metro
Mm.
card to get to work, which is great. It's a great idea. And so, like,
Yeah.
it's we're all in this predicament of, like, don't leave your house. My wife had brain surgery 2 years ago, so I have to be hyper vigilant about not letting her go and get the mail and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where we're all trying to find something to do, and hopefully we can do it online, right?
Yeah, I'd love to send my Metro card to that organization that you're talking about.
Yeah,
I'll have
that
to look that up.
information, I retweeted, I regrammed that too. So
We start these interviews right now with asking people how they're holding up inside, what they're doing to keep themselves busy. But I feel like you are kind of documenting it. You made basically a show out of it with Dinner with the Gaffigans, where for the past 4 days, really, since the real lockdown isolation started, or have you
well,
been
we've
doing
been
it
doing
longer than
it,
that?
I think, like 8 or 9 days, because
Oh, okay.
we've repeated pizza twice and pasta twice. And by the way, what's so amazing is this guy who makes this pasta sauce, Marinelli. I don't know his first. I can't. I think it's Adriano Marinelli. He watched Dinner with the Gaffigans, and he goes, "I'm going to send you some good sauce." Like, he saw the sauce that I was using, but Yeah, one of the things I was very aware of, because as we all know, this was going down hour to hour, right?
Yeah.
So one day this would happen and another hour would pass, and I was in Bogota, Colombia, starting my Latin American tour.
Wow.
Um, I don't want that to sound like people in Latin America have any idea who I am. They don't. But I was doing shows in Latin America, and I was in Bogota, Colombia, and I was about to go on stage. Well, it was a couple hours. I was about to go to the theater, and my manager called me. He said, Argentina closed their borders. So you have to decide when you're coming home. And so it was one of those things where when I was traveling back, I was very aware that there are people that are going to be separated from their families or their friends. So there's going to be, I immediately came back and was just consuming news like everyone else. And then I, saw this Dinner with the Gaffigans as kind of an opportunity to break from the constant news consumption that we all participate in,
Oh
and
yeah.
also just provide, selfishly to provide my kids some normalcy. Not that like being part of a reality show dinner is a reality, but it gives us an appointment every night, and it gives us something where they know it's streamed and it's interactive. People, can ask questions of my kids, so it's something that can help people, but also can help my children. And it also makes sure that we have dinner at 6. Trying to keep some normalcy, as everyone will tell you, is pretty difficult, when you don't leave the house.
Are your kids as well behaved when there isn't a camera on them?
No, no, not at all. I
Because
mean,
they are extremely well behaved, Jim, and also like very sweet and reverential to their
oh my gosh.
parents.
Well, thank you. I would say that, um, their behavior is, it's pretty uneven. Like they're rather mean to each other. I mean, some of that's the problem of, probably me being a comedian, my wife being a comedy writer, is that sarcasm and humor is such a currency in my
Mhm.
family. So how kids kind of navigate humor is often through just being mean.
Well, it's like
So
figuring out boundaries
yeah,
and what the line
they're
is.
they're
Yeah.
just yeah, they're just kind of attempting to be sarcastic to each other, but sometimes it just comes across as rude.
Right.
But that we do that every night, and the feedback is nice. It's not for everyone. Do you know what I mean? But there's people that their kids are grown, and it's just they get a kick out of it.
It's extremely sweet.
Yeah.
The opening theme song and the whole energy and the vibe that you have with your children and the it's an extremely sweet experience watching all of you together.
It mass absolute chaos.
When you stop rolling, it's just like the tables in the air and all they're food fighting and going crazy.
Well, it's really hard. It's being a parent is hard, and also you're negotiating with them. You know, we've we get them to do chores during the day, but there is a little bit of why can't I just have my screen all day? So
Right.
why do we have to go to bed? Because we're not gonna get up and go to school. We're not gonna go somewhere. Now there's rumors of school online starting next week,
Wow.
which is only going to be more difficult because we have 5 kids. So, and we
Like,
don't
do you have
even have
five
five
computers?
rooms really in our
Yeah.
apartment. So there's going to be 5 screens, and these online classes it's going to be, I'm not looking forward to it. It's already difficult, but it is, and different, and you see your kids kind of adjusting to it. They kind of take their turn at kind of missing their friends or missing their teachers. A lot of them miss their teachers.
Oh, wow.
They miss this parental figure that was kind of always there every day. And so it's pretty interesting to see. I mean, it's also an incredible opportunity for a parent, particularly someone who travels as much as me, to be there. And we watch every single family-friendly movie every single night. So
You also watch movies starring you too, right? Or they've just seen them before. I
they,
noticed
yeah,
they
well,
really they really like to rag on your movie.
yeah, no, well, there's some of it is the movies I've done over the last couple of years were not targeted towards kids. I mean, there was like Hotel Transylvania 3 and Troop
Sure.
Zero, but there were some dark ones. And there was one where I had two families that
Right.
my now 14-year-old son walked out of. He was, he's like, I mean, he wasn't in a theater, but like, he was like, this I don't think about dad as second family. He travels, every other weekend. And so,
Right.
and then there's some really dark ones where traveling, I think they ended up watching it. And I'm like, don't watch that one. So,
How do you go about choosing the family-friendly movies? I know you've watched The Lion King and La Bamba,
yes.
and I'm sure there's been some
Yeah.
others as well that I'm not referencing. But
Well, as sweet, by the way, La Bamba is a great movie
yeah,
for a family movie. But there is a moment like where there's, the brother Bob does some stuff that you're like, all right, kids, but we've watched I tried to get them to watch Purple Rain last night, but they were kind of coming undone. We watched Holes. We watched no, I'm
they were
blank.
coming undone during Purple Rain. Purple Rain is kind of an oddly slow movie.
Yeah. Well, we
Like nothing
also
happens in it.
no, and we watched Purple Rain. So we watched The World versus Scott Pilgrim, and then or Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and then the next night, which was last night, we tried to watch Purple Rain, and my kids were like, enough with this music kind of, you know what I mean? My 15-year-old daughter was fine with it, but like the boys were like, we also watched Dragonheart, which my younger sons loved, which is a Dennis Quaid kind of
Sean
80s or
Connery,
90s.
right?
Yeah, where he does
That's the
the
one
voice
where
of a dragon. Yeah.
right, and he does that. There was that he had that line that everyone loved that was in the trailer that was like, "I am the last one." Right?
Yes.
Wasn't that sorry?
Yeah.
Forgive my Sean Connery impression.
No, it is. It's so distracting because it also is the technology of the time.
Right.
So we're spoiled by today's technology. And we also know that's Sean Connery. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. Like, I feel like Purple Rain, as a kid, you just wouldn't understand how specific and abnormal Prince's performances are and how
Yeah.
special they are. You would just kind of be like, it's a guy playing music. Whereas by the time you reach the age of 15 or 16 years old, you would kind of know that like nobody else has done this and you've never
Yeah.
seen anything like it.
And my 14-year-old son, I talked about, Prince and, the legend and he's, was this musical savant. And he goes, I can tell, Dad, no one can play a guitar like that and dance
Wow.
around. So there is some
That's cool.
knowledge there.
La Bamba is that was like a family movie for me when I was growing up for some reason, but only because I was obsessed with the final moment of the movie where the brother screams Richie to the skies
Yeah.
because my name is Ricky. And I thought it was like, as a 6-year-old, I just thought it was the greatest moment in movie history.
It's, it's a really interesting movie because that was Lou Diamond Phillips kind of,
Yeah.
And we kind of congratulate ourselves today from a society standpoint for doing multicultural or representation. That was a movie that was pre all this, and it was just a great story. Obviously, Buddy Holly was more famous,
Mm-hmm.
but it was interesting because I saw La Bamba, I think, when I was in college, and so that was back when that was like PC or representation was not even in our discourse. So it's interesting to consider that. Of course, today people would be like, Lou Diamond Phillips is Filipino. He can't play a Mexican American, right?
Yeah, that is true. It wouldn't hold up to snuff these days, at
Yeah.
least in our current environment. How are you? How you said that your daughter, your oldest daughter, you've referred to her as an SJW in one of the videos. So I assume she's fairly politically connected, or is reading what's going on in the world. How are you sort of handling that? These are really tricky times. I think just in terms of the way government and people are responding to what's happening.
Yeah, no, it is very tricky because it's not just her, it's also, as I mentioned, as anyone watching this knows, it changes power, right? It's like,
Right.
okay, the stock market's gone. All right, we all have no 401k, we all have no savings, but and I'm exaggerating, obviously,
Sure.
but there's also the decisions, the tactical decisions. If you know, my life or my wife were dealing with, my wife is, she was in charge of everything. And now I'm sitting there going, I think we should order some beef jerky. And she's, like like I would never step into that realm before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like I was so grateful she was doing 90% of it. And so, but there is something about this ongoing conversation of like, we should, Amazon, you hear about like shifts getting the coronavirus. So I'm like, we should order some stuff, not stockpile, not kind of go crazy, but we should, we're not through the woods here. Do you know what I mean? I live in New York City. So do you. It's
Hmm.
like, it's, we have to be realistic here. We're not in kind of an area where they're mostly concerned about retirement communities. We're gonna, there is, and also given my wife's past medical history, it's not as if even me going out and getting staples is a good idea. It's like we
Yeah.
should get what we can and not take for granted that these people that are sacrificing doing delivery, they might not be able to do it one day. So we have to
Yeah.
be realistic.
Does that mean you're not stockpiling, but just sort of not taking for granted our delivery workers and people who work in that
Yes.
sector?
And
Yeah.
also the reality of uh, being with 5 children that um, will just, like my wife bought a box of cereal and I'm like, that's gonna last. I mean, I grew up in one of 6 kids. I'm like, my 14-year-old son could eat that whole box of cereal. Do you know what I mean? Like if he woke up before us. And kids are also, there's a certain level of stress associated with this whole thing. And I'm not saying they're stress eating, but like if having microwave popcorn makes them feel at ease one night, that's a good thing to have.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm stress eating during this. I'm a 35-year-old man, and just being in my house makes me eat everything that's here all day.
Yeah.
Every brief moment of respite is met with like, what can I eat? What's in the fridge right now?
Yeah. I mean, we are very much and I kind of, I've been doing these CBS Sunday commentaries, and really my observation of this week is that my wife and I are essentially, we wake up, we prepare breakfast for our kids, then we clean up, then we clean the house, then we make food, then we clean up, then we argue, then we make food, then we clean up. It's like we're essentially running a diner. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so it's one of those things where uh we're trying to just make the rituals kind of provide some normalcy, so there's not a free-for-all, like we all eat together at the same time. I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that you travel a lot, and in some ways, kind of a good time for you to be able with all of your kids for an extended period of time, I'm sure that the sort of gratitude and the love that you feel outweighs any of the stress that you feel. I mean, just the time that you get to spend with them.
Oh yeah. No, there's I mean that is something that is very much among all the inconvenience, the fear, there is a great gratitude about I mean, I'm not getting anything done. King Lear wrote Shakespeare wrote King Lear
Right.
during the Black Plague. There's nothing getting done. There's dinner with Gaffigans. That's kind of it. And I'm realizing that I did so much writing when I would travel. I would do a show, I go back to my hotel room, probably be a little bit wired, and I might do some writing or rewriting.
Mm.
So, you know, but to your point, it's like there is such a gratitude about this time, this kind of, 14 would be all over him, or he's just going to disappear and be on a screen. So the fact that I'm here is I can be there constantly going, come on, let's go help your mom.
Right. In 20 years, they're going to say, remember the shutdown and those like
Right.
3 weeks that we watched every movie that was in the house that we could watch and we did dinner
Yeah.
with the Gaffigans.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
it's, it's fascinating to consider because someone was like, so how long are you going to do this? Are you going to do dinner with the Gaffigans after? And I'm like, no. I mean, some of it is I never, because when we would go on these bus tours where I would bring my whole family, we were approached with opportunities to do a reality show, but there's the balance between going full on Kardashian, which in a way, there's part of me that's like, you know what, that's their choice. I mean, I don't agree
Mhm.
with it. But then there's also, I have friends and peers that are like, I would never show a photo of my child on the internet. And you're like, but you do have jokes that, like, I hope your kid's never here. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, there's a balancing act. Like, but the point I'm making is that Dinner with the Gaffigans is something kind of unique to this. Like, my expectation is once we're out of quarantine, we're not going to need this tent pole to kind of keep us grounded. It's because I think it is kind of a private, personal thing that we're kind of opening up in hopefully a generous way. I mean, we're not monetizing it or anything like that.
Yeah. It feels first and foremost like personal documentation, like
Yeah.
home movies. And that's how it's shot. It's not like you have
Yeah.
a group of producers in there being like,
Yeah.
okay, Mari,
Yeah.
you're gonna be mad at him today for this
Right.
reason. And
Yeah.
like your dad really gets upset when you say this. So let's say that 3 times and see where he gets. It's
Yeah.
like you're just hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have this other show that you started, obviously, while I think you do it while you're on tour, started it prior
Yes.
to Corona locking everything down. Jim Eats the World. Is there any sense of picking that up while in New York? I mean, certain restaurants are delivering or you can do pickup. Have you
Yeah.
considered it
I
at all?
mean, I've it's entered my mind, and we do have a bunch of episodes that I have that I shot. Some of the idea was, I did this book about food, and then as I travel to different cities, um, because of the book, it's so funny because I did this book, Food: A Love Story. So as a result, you would go to Kansas City and you're like, well, I'm doing research, so I have to try all this great barbecue in Kansas City. And oh, there's this place that makes these muffins. I should try those. And what I realized is after shows, I'm eating the local specialty anyway. And in my act, I'm typically talking about that local specialty,
Mhm.
just riffing on it for a couple of minutes. And so, in a couple of cities, St. Louis, Rochester, New York, Cleveland, Kansas City, I've done some, I just recorded. I set up a GoPro, and then, the meal would be the local specialty, whether it be the garbage plate in Rochester, New York, or the Polish boy in Cleveland, Ohio, or barbecue in Kansas City. And so it was just something I was gonna do anyway, and kind of just see, as something to do on YouTube, and kind of just because I feel like there's something so informal about YouTube that is really appealing to me, that the stand up doesn't have to be perfect when you're talking about a local specialty. Uh, and talking about toasted ravioli in St. Louis, that might not have universal appeal, but people that have been to St. Louis, or people that love St. Louis food, will find it engaging and interesting. And obviously, people from St. Louis, there's a pride associated with some of it.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the St. Louis cuisine that you eat again? A toasted ravioli? Uh-oh. Did we lose Jim? Jim, are you
Real
there?
deep dish.
Oh, there we go.
But St. Louis is known for toasted ravioli, and also there's a St. Louis style of pizza, similar to, there's a New York style, and there's a Chicago style, there's a Detroit style of pizza. And so after one of the shows in St. Louis, I had toasted ravioli. I performed there a couple nights. And on another night, I had the St. Louis style pizza, which is very different from New York, New Jersey style pizza, or Chicago, or even
Hmm.
Detroit pizza.
Jim, I think I've kept you for some time, but before I let you go, I'm curious, and I think it's probably the dinners that you have every night with your family, because as we've seen, those are, or as I've seen, those are kind of a shining light of positivity. But how do you remain positive throughout this? How have you been remaining positive?
Well, I feel as though, when you're a parent, you have the benefit of the responsibility of uh, being the inspiration for other people. So you don't really have the luxury of embracing certain levels of neurosis. Do you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
just can't um, go on some pity pod or worry about certain things, because I have to kind of be attentive to their needs, and also my wife's needs. You know what I mean? That's not to say that my wife and I don't steal moments of conversations of, concern, but I don't know. I think that I'm kind of somebody who's probably better in really dark situations than I'm the guy who gets angry when, like, the Uber driver takes too long. But like a big
You're petty.
catastrophe, I'm kind of like, one time we rented a boat, this houseboat, and we were in Wisconsin, and it started sinking, and I realized it was sinking, and I told everyone, I go, very calmly, I go to the back. Everyone go to the back. So they went to the back, and it leveled off. And everyone was like, why were you so calm? And I'm like, because, like, being hysterical in that situation would serve no good. And I'm not saying I have any control over it. It's, I'm still the guy that gets mad that, you know, um, my flight's delayed 20 minutes, or it takes 10 minutes to get off a plane, as if we're ever going to go on a plane again. I'm joking. But um uh but I don't know, it's weird,
Yeah.
but you also, in these kind of situations, I think it's like all relationships. If you're around someone who is kind of calm, it can calm you. And that's not to say that my family, we don't argue, but it's usually about, me ordering something that's unhealthy, or about, or about trying to get a kid motivated or off a screen. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not about the larger crisis.
Right. You can't really win that. No one can really win that argument. What's the
Yeah,
what's
we're
what's the
really
point of it?
powerless over that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's how I found my response from the beginning of this was just like, this is totally out of my hands. I can't really get upset about it. You just gotta
Yeah.
have to just kind of have to do what I can. I'm also extremely lucky in the midst of all of this. So I have that
Yeah.
luxury. But
No,
yeah.
I mean look, it's not ideal for a comedian to not be able to perform, that's for sure. But there's a lot of, you can do your job from home. I can kind of, stay creatively sharp through
Hmm.
something like this. Uh, there's worse situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of gratitude surrounding that too.
On that note,
Until the economy collapses. I'm joking.
well, hey, we're gonna fill those churches on Easter. The economy's gonna open right back up, Jim. Just kidding.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Gosh. So it's it's almost been this. You probably want to get rid of me. It's almost
No,
been this
not at all. If we
build.
want to get into this, I'm into it. Let's go.
It's been this build of, like, if we looked back to, let's say, 2017 January, what shocked us? Do you know what I mean? Or what outraged us? It's this steady push, and some of it is um different factors. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, this is um obviously COVID-19 is but I'm saying it's this building element
Yeah.
that has just been like, okay, okay, like the shock of the numbers. Like, I think there was an earthquake in some place, and I used to be like, Jeannie, come here, look at this. And now I'm like, yeah, I'll tell her about the earthquake later. It's just it's turning into we're living in an action movie, right?
Yes, a dystopian kind of
Like,
action movie.
who's the Scottish actor who's
Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler? We're all in a Gerard Butler movie,
Yeah, it happened.
right?
Yeah. Never in my life did I think the like people in this country would say, "Hey, you know what? The economy is worth sacrificing the human beings. Let's go." And I was like,
Yeah.
the past couple of days, like that was one of the scariest, most shocking things I think I've ever witnessed in my life. Just the comfortability in
It's
saying that.
I think there's also it's so fascinating to witness um
I mean, that must have felt particularly offensive to you I mean, as you've said, like your wife just had brain surgery 2 years ago. She has probably immunity deficiencies that she
yeah.
needs to take care of. To have certain people, Gary Cohn, Lloyd Blankfein, and even the president say, hey, you win some, you lose some, but the economy's got to get restarted, guys. Like,
Yeah, but
what was that?
don't you instinctively there's two things. One, um because of this rising tide of wow factors in our lives, I'm not as angry as I probably should be. But two, there's also part of me, it's like, those guys don't realize they're not in control. Like, we're not
Right.
in control of this. Like, the humor of you going, well, come Easter, we're all going to be out there. It's like, that's not up for us to decide. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? And there is something about some being stubbornly saying something like that, where, look, I wish there were more adults in the room, but I also feel as though they're going to have to backpedal. Do you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
in 2 weeks, Trump is going to say, one more week, and then we're all going on a cruise. You know what I mean? And do you know what I mean? He's,
Yeah.
in his, almost in his defense, he's, it's easy to say that he's picking commerce over humanity, but there is also a level of, it's not just about him getting reelected. It's about in his kind of, in the mathematics of his mind, the economy, like he doesn't even know that humanity is way more important than the economy. And
No.
it's a political instinct. Like I even saw Cuomo, who I think, by the way, is killing it.
Yeah.
I saw Cuomo at one point. This is going back a week ago. He gave a speech about like we have to take this social distancing thing really seriously. He was very sober and mature before Trump, and he said, and remember, New York City has some of the finest parks. And you're like, no, dude, don't tell people to go to parks. And so, but that's, in his defense, that was the, that wasn't like that wasn't disinterest in humans. That was just a clumsy kind of involuntary response that
Right.
he was thinking, all right, people in a park. But like you look at footage in the UK of people or people in DC watching the cherry blossom, and you're like, no, don't do that, you guys, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm still going on runs in parks, and I'm a little like, why are you guys why is no one else running in here? Why are you standing around?
Right. Yeah.
Jim, man, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm glad that you're holding up well and that the family's healthy and everybody's doing well. And I can't wait for what's for dinner tonight?
I think for dinner tonight is Chicago deep dish pizza. But because of the show or the live stream, we also were sent a box of pretzels from Milwaukee Pretzels. Like, it's just amazing. So I just got to get Mercedes to send me a car.
What's the movie for tonight?
I don't know what the movie is tonight. It's kind of a rotating choice. Patrick, come on over here. Here's Patrick. Patrick, say
hey, what's up?
Hi.
Hey, Patrick.
This is so like supposedly this room is closed so that I could do this interview, but he just went in, right?
And he left.
That's the echo,
he's out.
He's like, my iPad died. I need another one. Oh, that iPad didn't have Roblox.
Just came in to show you that he could come into the room and walk out. This isn't off limits.
I could reinstall it and it was free. Even if I need to update something, it's still like, what's the password?
Yeah.
All right.
I think so much. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you. And one last thing before I let you go, there was a number of charities that you mentioned. You said that you've reposted them on your Twitter and on your Instagram as well, so people can check out your Instagram and your Twitter and see some of those charities.
The MetroCard thing for New Yorkers is on Instagram, and also the food shelter that they need food. It's Ascension. It's the Ascension, the Catholic Church on 107th, I believe. And they have a pantry. It's one of 5 pantries, and they have an expectation of a lot of people coming this Saturday. So if you have canned foods or, you want to help them out, that would be great.
Great. Jim Gaffigan, such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. Be well, stay healthy, stay safe.
Thanks so much. Take care.